Hello and greetings from Iowa. My name is Tyler Owen, and I'm here on the Bamsters Rated R show to talk about my game Lacuna Passage.
Hello, and welcome back again to the Bamsters show. Currently on episode 71. That's 70 episodes more than I thought we would get. I'm Jolly Roger, and I am joined by Draconis.
Yo ho ho, and a few bottles of rum.
That's what I'm talking about, starting that Sunday off right. What's been going on, man?
Starting the construction on the new office. That's, I'm having trouble braining right now, so you have to forgive me.
You're having trouble braining. It's currently 1:30 a.m. for East Coast, West Coast.
It's West Coast, Best Coast. What are you talking about?
You can't just say what I said and change it. Nope, doesn't work that way.
But West rhymes with best.
No. Talking about repeats, did you see the Far Cry 5 announcement trailer they just put out recently?
I did. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of have mixed feelings about it, but one of the things I am excited about with regards to it is they said that you'll at least be able to play co-op through the story with at least one other person. So I don't know yet if it's just going to be two-player co-op throughout the story, because I think you can bring mercenaries in, I think up to 3 other mercenaries, so it'd be like 4 people going through. It'd be nice if it was at least 4-player co-op, but the fact that it's not going to be like Far Cry 4 where all you could do was hop in and do a couple of missions with other people, which was kind of lame. In Far Cry 5, it'll at least be 2-player, maybe more, for the full story.
Yeah, I'm always a fan of 4-player co-ops for storylines and stuff. It's amazing. Halo. That's like I definitely played a lot of time in Halo, and 4-player co-op was amazing. I doubt I'll pick up Far Cry 5. I played 3, I want to say, and I kind of think I've played them all just from playing that.
I've played the other ones. I've had fun with them, and I'll probably end up picking up Far Cry 5 solely for the co-op, because I got another buddy of mine that enjoys the games. It'll be good fun for us to go through and play that. But speaking of other games where you can have multiple people playing, you mentioned something earlier about FIFA moving from Xbox or XBone to the PS4.
Exactly. Speaking of other games that we don't currently play ourselves, FIFA. I've never been a really big football fan, or soccer, as us Americans would prefer it to be called, because that's what it is. It's soccer, man. But yeah, I want to say the marketing for FIFA has been on Xbox for the longest time. Like EA and Microsoft, they love the partnering. And apparently it's switching to PlayStation next year for FIFA 18 and ongoing until Xbox outsells PlayStation again and they offer them more money than PlayStation offers them.
I don't get it. I don't know why you want to just go console exclusive with something like that. I mean, it makes no difference to me because, like you said,
No, not console exclusive. I don't think FIFA's console exclusive, is it? I think just the marketing.
Oh, okay. That based on the way you were talking about it, I thought it was going to be exclusively just on one of the systems. And I'm not a big fan of console exclusives. I mean, I understand if you have one like main ship type title, but aside from that, I prefer to see these things released and not force people to own multiple consoles just to play specific games.
But yeah, I want to say it's definitely not console exclusive. It's like you can play on both of them, but on the marketing, the commercials and stuff like that, it's Xbox, but it's going over to PlayStation.
So now when they show the commercials, they're going to say, on PlayStation, and then in the tiny little legal writing that you can't read is where they'll mention it's also on Xbox.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, like, Sony kills it overseas, over in Europe and stuff, and that's where FIFA's the most popular, which sucks for Microsoft, for Microsoft, because that's where they were doing horrible, was overseas. PlayStation's always seemed to kill them overseas. But they had FIFA, so I mean that had like the foot in the door kind of thing. But they're not even gonna have that anymore. That sucks for them. Right before Scorpio launches, that sucks.
Yeah, we'll have to see how things turn out after E3 this year.
Yep. Just a couple more weeks. I think it's like June July, 15th, 16th, 17th, something like that.
It should be in June because Comic-Con's in July, and I don't think either one of those happen in the same month.
Fair enough. And on the subject of PlayStation, like, I imagine you're a PlayStation Plus subscriber, right?
No, I haven't actually found that much time to even turn my PlayStation on, so I'm not paying for a monthly thing that I'm not using.
fair enough. We're going to cut that out of the show. Like, I will not make it to the broadcast. Won't happen. He loves the PlayStation. Anyway, they've kind of accidentally announced the next two PlayStation Plus free, I'm doing little air quotes, free games, because you do have to pay for PlayStation Plus to get these games, so it's not really free. But Life is Strange, which is a pretty good game, and Killing Floor 2, which was a pretty popular game.
I can tell when my daughter's been hanging around me a lot because she repeats some of the things that I say, and the whole buy one, get one free. I heard her telling somebody the other day, it's not free. They're both 50% off because you can't get one unless you buy one.
Yeah, that's rather true. It's a very Jewish argument to make right there.
Oh, that'll make my buddy Jeremy happy. That was one of my nicknames was, hold on a second, brain let out.
Man down. Man down.
Fuck. Oh, God damn it. I apologize. I did warn you I was having trouble with the brain today.
No, you definitely did. You definitely did. It's all good.
Yeah, that'll make my buddy Jeremy happy because he used to call me a cheap Jew all the time because I was always, penny pinching.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. I just don't spend my money.
Well, and you switch things, or at least we were talking a little bit about both PlayStation and Xbox, so I'm going to switch it back to Microsoft. And something they did this week kind of caught me off guard a little bit because I use the streaming service Beam from time to time. And actually, mostly I've been using it to listen to Monster Cat music. But then when we've done our live stream and some other streaming stuff, I'll stream to Beam in addition to Twitch and YouTube. And they've now changed Beam to Mixer.
All right, getting the party started, right?
I don't know if that's what they're trying to project, but it seems something like that they're trying to kind of project this as like a gaming party type service.
I mean, that's an old term. Like, I want to say I saw it on Mad Max, or not Mad Max. Yeah, that'd be amazing. Mad Men, when that was still around. Like, wasn't it like an old party?
Yeah, I think that was, I think what you're thinking of is like back in the 60s or something where you show up and everybody throws their keys in a bowl or something like that.
No, I think that has a different term. And that's a good time.
But one of the cool features I saw from the article I was reading was they were talking about up to 4 PC players being able to stream to the same account, and it would give a 4-way split screen. So for the viewers, you'd be able to watch all 4 of those players at the same time. Like, for instance, player Unknown Battlegrounds or Overwatch or whatever the game of the month is.
Yeah, I think Twitch has something similar to that. I don't know if it's Twitch itself or it's a third party, but you can definitely watch multiple streams on the same screen. I'm kind of curious, like, say you're watching 4 streams and 3 of the people die. Can you, like, select one of the people and make that bigger?
I don't know. How those features are going to roll out or how they're going to work, that'll be kind of interesting to see. Beam's also had other features available where you'd be able to, they have a currency on there called Sparks, and you can spend Sparks to do different things or to assign tasks to players in certain games. So it'd be kind of interesting to see if they integrate that in there. If you're watching a 4-person stream, I assume you're still earning the same number of Sparks as if you were just watching a 1-person stream. But how is it going to cost you if you try to use those things to do different things for each of the players?
Yeah, I don't get that at all. Sparks? Like, is that like their version of currency? Like, does the streamer actually get the spark?
I basically, the way, I haven't done too much with it yet, but the way I understand it is that either you stream or if you're watching, you earn this spark currency. It's a virtual currency. And you can then spend that to do different types of emotes or send tasks to gamers and ask. I think like Rocket League don't quote me on this, but might maybe have some things where you can stream, you hit a certain button and then they have to take on some kind of handicap in order to match up with whatever you're sending them. I know so much about this right now.
It's a learning experience. Like, as you were saying all that, I was just thinking of like Rocket League phrases. The entire time I was going to be like, wow, 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 wow. Chat disabled. But yeah, I got you. Okay, so it's somewhat of an unknown exactly how all that's going to play out, but it'll be interesting. I don't really get the change of the name. Like, Beacon's all right, but Mixer's still cool too, I guess. And I like to drink. Who doesn't like to drink?
Not this guy. All right, guys, and on that note, we are going to turn you over to our interview. This week, we've got the developers from Lacuna Passage, and it is a space survival type game, which takes place, I believe, on I'm not sure if it's on Mars or on a Mars-like planet. That'll be coming up right after the break. So for myself, Draconis, I'm out.
And Jolly Roger saying, catch you later.
Hi, I'm Tyler Owen, and I am the developer of Lacuna Passage. I'm here on the Bamsters Rated R show, and I think we're going to talk about bacon or something.
Hello guys and welcome to this week's interview. Right, today I have with me G, and G's brought along someone to talk to you guys about his game. G, introduce yourself and tell me who you brought along.
Hey everybody, yeah, I'm here, and across the pond I brought along a Tyler Owen, here to talk about his little game Lacuna Passage. I hope I'm pronouncing that one correctly. A new little survival game on Mars.
That's right.
Wait, hang on, did I just hear him call it Poon Passage? What?
Lacuna Passage.
The Lacuna Passage, okay, right. Tell me more, please, because when I first heard it, I thought it was Poon Passage, and I'm like, okay. Okay, Mars, is it? All right.
Sure, yeah. So a lot of people don't know the connection to the name with exploring Mars, but I can shed some light on that a little bit. Lacuna Passage is a phrase that I think encapsulates my desire to encourage space exploration and science education. Lacuna is a word that basically means gap or kind of a hole in knowledge, and passage obviously being kind of a journey to close that gap. So I've been working on this game, Lacuna Passage, for a while now, and its goal is to create a kind of atmosphere around space exploration to encourage continuing forward with those goals in our space agencies and stuff.
This is where I kind of have to jump in and say thank you, because when I saw the title, I got properly confused. Lacuna is the diminutive form of the word lacus in Latin, which would mean small lake. So it's kind of like, is it a game about drowning on Mars?
Yeah, it's a word that has a lot of different meanings depending on the context, but one of the common ones is when you are trying to translate between two languages, and if a language doesn't have a word that really functions in the same way as another language, that's a gap in language is considered a lacuna of sorts. I guess I don't know the technical use of the word in that context, but I found that really fascinating.
You just educated me. Wow.
Yeah.
Someone educated G? Wait, what? Hang on. Whoa. Mr. Self-entitled, Mr. Clever Clogs over here has been educated by a game developer. Ooh, this is new. Ah, yes. Let me sit and think on this one.
Okay, well, meanwhile, let's dig into the game a little bit. So, I was playing it earlier. Full disclosure, I play on a Mac, and the game, let's just say it runs on a Mac. I need a bigger Mac.
Yeah, it's we've got Mac support. It's certainly a game that stresses a laptop a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm precisely playing on a laptop. But, it worked. I was happy, and I got to be in that little pod that lands on Mars and then look out and be completely confused because everything is apparently red and brownish. Yeah. So the game, right now, we've got a survival sandbox mode. We're on Steam Early Access, and the basic premise is that you are alone and stranded on Mars and trying to survive. And I've tried to create a as realistic as possible of an environment for the player to kind of role play what an astronaut living on Mars might be like, and specifically an astronaut going through a crisis. So I'm sure you've heard or seen of the Martian movie with Matt Damon, and it's based on a book. So we kind of are trying to encapsulate that experience in a video game. I think you got it quite right, because 5 minutes later I was dead.
Yes.
Apparently I should not put fuses into everything and solar panels on everything. Or I did it wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, the survival aspect of the game it can be a little bit brutal, but for first-time players, I think it's one of those things where every time you play, I would expect you to do a little bit better than the last time. So, you learn from all your mistakes, and eventually you'll be surviving 100 souls.
Whoa. You're on Mars, bro. Mars isn't necessarily the most forgiving of environments. If you die within 5 minutes, G, that's your bloody fault.
Yeah.
Now, I was going to say it's a case of Matt Damon on Mars. And I was going to say, did you take the inspiration from the book or from the movie?
Well, the book was fully released because it was released chapter by chapter originally, but the full book was finished right around the time that I was starting to work on a prototype for this. And I was originally inspired first by the landing of the Curiosity rover on Mars. And my wife and I were sitting on the couch watching the first images being beamed back from the rover. And I just remember thinking to myself that how badly I wished I could be at the controls of that rover and just kind of drive it wherever I wanted to go and take pictures of all the cool landmarks on Mars. And I realized about the closest I'm ever going to get to doing that would be if I were to make a game about it. So I started working on the prototype. And then when the book, The Martian, came out, I really started to get interested in this idea of like, okay, what would this really be like for some of the first Martian human explorers?
You do know that rover has something like, what, 35-minute delay? It's like the worst case of lag ever.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it'd be a matter of basically picking a spot on a map and then just kind of telling it where to go. But yeah, just being able to be in control of where and how you would take photos, I think was really fascinating. And so that's actually one of the things that I incorporated into the game too, is that there's a photography mechanic. And so you can kind of be a Mars surveyor of types.
Yeah, this is again, I have to correct Bam. The delay is only between 8 and 24 minutes, 20 minutes.
Yeah, depending on where Earth is in relation to the position of Mars, yeah, the delay can be shorter or longer.
I understand, I appreciate that, but have you seen the internet nowadays, bro? Have you seen the internet? Do you even internet, bro? It can be pretty bad, especially when they're using dial-up. God.
Yeah, I liked it when they started with the latest Jupiter, was it Juno? I started talking about how it's, 30 AU away, 8 minutes per AU. It's like, yeah, we think there's data coming, we have no clue.
Right.
I'm surprised you said the Curiosity rover. What about Opportunity?
Yeah, so the Curiosity rover was the most recent really big rover that we sent to Mars. The other ones, there have been several Mars rovers, but they kind of came before I had a strong interest in space exploration and science. So yeah, the Curiosity rover was the first one that really kind of hit popular culture cross-section of my interest in science. So that was the one that really set me off on this direction.
Fair enough. So enough about spacey type probes and things. A bit more about yourself.
Sure.
Please,
yeah.
Tell me. I need to know your entire life story.
All right.
Don't tell me. I'd like to know the sexy parts, but this is the type of chat. So just the brief history, mate. Go on. Tell us.
Sure. So I went to school for game design and CGI art, and towards the end of my 4 years there, I kind of realized that I wasn't as interested in the art aspect as I was in programming. And so I started teaching myself programming and went through a series of positions after college, working in educational gaming. And in about 2010, I decided to start my own indie game company, Random Seed Games. And so I've worked with a variety of individuals through freelancers and volunteers and collaborators. And we've done a couple different projects, but Lacuna Passage has been our biggest project. And we did a Kickstarter back a couple of years ago here. And since then, that's what we've been working on. So I've been the primary, only full-time developer on the project. And it's kind of an ambitious project for one main developer, but I'm really excited to be where we're at now and finally be out on Steam Early Access.
Believe it or not, mate. Believe it or not. From what I've seen, because I don't PC game, bro. I'm a PS4 hobo,
sure.
Right? I'm one of them plebs, them lower life forms, them amoebas on the fuck. I'm one of the lower life forms in the gaming world. But obviously, you do some research and whatever have you. And funnily, you mention this type of stuff. There's a YouTuber I subscribe to called Scott Manley, or the Manly Scotsman. I watch him quite a lot, and this is what got me interested in getting you on, was watching him. And I'm like, gotta have a chat with this guy because this game looks excellent. I watched his gameplay and I watched quite a few other YouTubers' gameplay just to get a feel for the game. And it seems that when it comes to indie developers, particularly yourself, you guys seem to have the musical score bang on. It gives you this lonely, sort of lost, sort of airy, uncertain sort of feel about yourself, as you go into the loading screen, and I think it's well made.
Oh, yeah, thank you so much for saying so. Yeah, our composer is Clark Aboud. He's a freelancer out in Australia, actually, and he does an amazing job. He's been with us here from the beginning. And that is one of the things that I really strongly felt needed to be a big part of the game, because there are so many other survival games and games, space games, and they kind of lack this atmosphere, this cinematic quality, and so I really wanted that to be a big part of the game. So yeah, we've got these really awesome dynamic soundtrack pieces that he's created, and kind of highlight some of the major events that you'll come across in the game, like discovering a new habitat, or even just wandering about aimlessly on Mars' surface. It kind of highlights every little thing you do and creates a story, the feeling of a story that you're creating based on your experiences.
It gave me a very sort of, I want to say, you know, when the hackles or hairs down the back of your neck and you get that chill down your spine. That's like what that music made me feel like. It's like, oh God, you're going to have a bad time, bro.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a very kind game to new players. But again, like you said, the more you play, the more you learn, the longer you last. Gee. Yes, that's right. Play better. Get good, noob.
Yep.
Ouch. It makes sense that you would get somebody from Australia to make soundtrack for this game, because, you know, that place wants to kill you too.
There you go. Yeah. It's been really interesting defining the atmosphere for the game, because obviously you're going to have an inbuilt atmosphere of fear and loneliness just based on the setting and kind of having to keep track of your survival stats and such. But I think that there is an aspect that can't be easily conveyed via gameplay mechanics, and that's this feeling of like inspiration or hope. And I feel like just watching some of the like more recent space events, like the launching of the reusable rockets from SpaceX, I feel like the one thing missing from a lot of those events is some kind of like Hollywood soundtrack, because they are really awesome, inspiring events. And so that's the kind of feel that I wanted to convey with Lacuna Passage and the music.
Well, have you been to Australia?
I have not, no.
Right. Australia looks a little bit like Mars, just no vegetation.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of red. So maybe you need to go to Australia, get some inspiration. Yeah.
I would love to, yeah.
So tell me, can I grow potatoes in Laguna Seca? Laguna Seca? Oops. Laguna Passage.
Not yet.
Sorry about that. Laguna
No,
Seca.
that's all right.
Wow.
We will be adding some botany mechanics in a future update here soon. That's one of the things I'm pretty excited about, is we've got a really nice update schedule planned for the game. I'm going to be focusing first and foremost on a survival event update, which will include sandstorms and radiation storms. But yeah, after that, we've got, you know, potentially drivable vehicles and a botany update where you'd be able to grow food and potatoes and such.
Bam, you're jumping a little bit ahead in my questions, because
Sorry, mate.
I kind of looked at this random seed company in Utah, and you're from Iowa, correct?
That's right.
So instead of poop potato, shouldn't it be poop maize?
Yeah. Iowa is very well known for corn, and it'll be interesting to see what we decide to do with some of the botany features, because the first few missions to Mars, which our game is based on, would not be primarily focused on providing food by growing it. They would be doing, you know, research growing of food. So you'd have just small samples of things, and it wouldn't be intended to keep you alive. But in the case of the story of the survival mode, where you're, you know, kind of marooned on Mars and you don't know when rescue will come, you're kind of like Mark Watney in The Martian, having to take advantage of whatever you can to stay alive. And that means perhaps trying to expand the botany to supplement your nutrition. So
Yeah, I was looking at the pitch that your PR company sent us, and one of the things it said about the story is it's not written yet, so yeah, we can't go too much into it, but it sounds like there's already been a team before your character, who's apparently called Jessica. There's already been somebody on Mars, so I did have the expectation we would have to run around hunting for poop.
Yeah. So the story mode, which will be coming in our final release when we exit early access, is going to be a story where you follow Jessica Rayner, that's your character, and she is part of the second manned mission to Mars, which is just following behind the first manned mission by just a few days. And you lose contact with them when they first land on the surface, and then when you land on the surface, you crash land and you're the only survivor. So you have this balance of trying to decide what your priorities are going to be as a player. Are you going to try to follow what happened to that first crew and figure out why you've lost contact with them, or are you going to focus primarily on your own survival and rescue and kind of holing up in a habitat and trying to maintain your supplies? So there'll be plenty of different things that the player can explore in that space, and we're using the survival sandbox as kind of just, like the name says, a sandbox to explore the game mechanics that will be part of that final story mode.
So is it a case where eventually we might have to choose between, are we investing our effort into more food for just hunkering down, or investing our energy into building a radio tower to ask for help faster?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah, there are certainly different ways you could go about potentially searching for rescue to reestablish communications with Earth, or perhaps you can even get the launch vehicle back up and running so that you could escape the planet yourself. So there's all kinds of different ways that we could go about creating goals for the player in story mode.
So there is an ascent vehicle somewhere that might be relevant, or is it even one that can, do the whole transit back to Earth?
Right, yeah. Those first few missions, I think, at least in terms of public perception, in order to get them funded, it'll be very important that this isn't a one-way trip. We don't have quite the resources to invest in establishing a permanent colony on Mars. And so at least the way it seems right now, those first few missions to Mars would be, go spend, a few weeks, few months, and then take off from the surface and head back to Earth.
Well, considering Homeland transfers are 7-something months, and there's an opening every 22 months, but once you get there, the opposite ending opening is a month later? So yeah, you could stay there for a month, and that'll be the better part of a year until somebody can go again.
Right, yep.
Sorry, I might have lost people there.
No. If you've lost people there, they need to go back to school. Right. No. I know this game is trying to invite people into playing a different kind of survival game by using mechanics science and all that jazz. But I have to ask the question. So this is going to be probably the only time I'm going to mention this. Tinfoil time. Tinfoil hat time. Bacon-covered tinfoil hat time. Little green men. Will there or will there not be little green men?
I'm not going to comment on whether or not they will or won't be in the final game, but I will say that the game is based on the most accurate knowledge we have of the current Mars, and our current knowledge tells us that there's probably not any kind of complex life on Mars. At best, it would be some form of bacteria or single-celled organisms.
So yes then, cool. Now we'll see. I'll wait and see.
Yeah, I'm mostly impressed you just said Bam's family's up there.
Nah, that's not very nice, G. That's not very nice.
And?
Well, your family's up there too, dude. I need to send them shit to give them company, bro. Come now.
I'm just hoping, one of the things when I see all of these, you're not the only Mars game, sorry. There's a lot of them, and they take different approaches, and I think all that I've seen so far are valid. I like this idea of running around, documenting through photography what has happened before and reporting back, trying to report back. But one thing that always irritates me, I want to see historical artifacts up there. I want to come across, the Curiosity rover or something. Now, Mars is fairly big. People think it's small. It isn't. It actually has the same area as Earth has land area. So it's pretty big. But put something there that we can recognize. Go there's one of Mars One's capsule completely destroyed because they don't know how to land things. Something like that.
Yeah. Well, there'll definitely be some really interesting artifacts you can find. I'm not going to comment on if they're ones that have historically been actual missions to Mars, but our mission to Mars is set in the 2030s, I believe, and so there's plenty of space for things that have happened between now and then that you might come across.
So no spacesuit that says Mark Watney on it?
Probably not. I think we might have some cease and desists if that were the case.
Yeah, I would just love it if there was something like that. Take the piss out of some of the other stories, books, movies, etc. Yeah,
it's funny, there are some Easter eggs in there for players that look hard enough. And in fact, some might have noticed already in the early access version, the habitats that you can kind of use as your base of operation, there's floor tiles that are very reminiscent of floor tiles in the spaceships in 2001: A Space Odyssey, which is another one of my favorites. Okay,
another question. You gotta think on your feet now and answer me straight now. Star Wars or Star Trek? Go.
Star Wars.
G, you're outnumbered here now, sunshine.
People can get things wrong. It's okay.
I was part of the, I guess, when I was young, my dad was big into Star Wars, and he did watch some Star Trek, but it's not an easy series to get into when you're a very young child. So I kind of missed the boat on that one, I think. But I've enjoyed some of the more recent stuff, and I'm actually really looking forward to the new series on CBS. So that should be interesting.
And I guess for our international listeners, that would be the new series on Netflix, Star Trek
yeah.
Discovery, or STD.
Yeah.
Just saying, my kids from age 6 knew that Star Trek was better than Star Wars.
Well, you must have been heavily influential.
Now, you touched a little bit on this, but the game has been running for a while. I mean, running as in you've been working on it for a while. You even did a Kickstarter. What was that, in 2013?
Yeah, it was a while ago, yeah. The indie games are hard, man. It's I'm sure that you've talked with other developers who will tell you the same thing. Like, I certainly don't think I knew all of what it would tail back then, but I stand by the fact that we've never ever once thought about dropping this project or moving on or delivering something short of what we promised. So I'm really proud of what we've accomplished so far, and yeah, it's been a really fun process actually getting to get feedback from all of our Kickstarter backers, and they're finally starting to show it off to their friends who can now buy it on Steam Early Access. So and the early access process has been really important for us too, just because being a small developer like this, we really do need that feedback and the people helping to test the game and help us determine what the direction should be for some of the game mechanics that we implement. So I determine almost all of our development priorities now based on the feedback that we get from players and Kickstarter backers. So it's been really great.
Yeah, I would also say, at the time you did it, at least Kickstarter was still fairly stable. Nowadays it seems like every other project is failing simply because there's too many of them.
Yeah, we were certainly in the kind of the tail end of the golden age for Kickstarter when we did ours, and when I say golden age, I mean age of just about anybody who had a semi-decent pitch could get funded on Kickstarter. But that was also the kind of the beginning of the end for when people realized, oh, well, they had a great pitch, but they're doing nothing now. So a lot of those indie companies and people doing Kickstarter pitches back then that found success did not find success in completing their projects. And so I'm really proud of the fact that we've stuck with it this whole time, and we're really delivering on what our original backers wanted. So
definitely kudos to you for actually getting it out. There's been some that haven't quite managed that, as you said. There's been some headaches over the times. So
yeah, I mean, I think if we were to launch our Kickstarter today, it's a much different environment, and I don't know if so we would have been successful. But I mean, and for good reason, honestly. Like, if I were to go back and do it again, I'd certainly would have done things differently. But I'm really excited that this will get to come out and people are getting to play it. So it's been a learning process, that's for sure. But I think that the end product is going to be what people want.
So far, it's promising. I've enjoyed, even if I died 5 minutes in,
Sure.
I enjoyed running around. It was interesting. It's a little bit awkward on a trackpad, but hey, it worked.
Yeah.
That's the important part. And from there on, as you say, I just have to get better.
Yeah, and I think a lot of our players are not necessarily gamers either. They're people who are interested in space and space exploration. And so we have people who are looking at this from a more analytical side, and they don't mind the complexity or the difficulty curve, although I am going to be probably massaging that a little bit based on feedback and maybe making it a little bit easier for new players to feel like they know what's going on from the start. But yeah, the dying in the first 5 minutes of the game, I mean, if you're not focused on what kind of things an astronaut would need to keep aware of, then yeah, you'll probably die pretty quickly. But the big theme that I keep going back to for all of our design of gameplay mechanics is player choice and creating interesting decisions. So one example would be, you've got these 4 life support modules that are attached to every habitat, and you might only have enough solar panels to run 2 of them during the day. And so you have to decide, you have to make that decision. Okay, which do I want to, produce oxygen today or water? Do I have enough of either to keep me going for the next 24 hours if I move these solar panels? Do I have enough reserve power to power these modules during the night? And when it comes to installing the different components like solar panels and fuses and things like that, we're never going to tell you where you should use them to make the most optimal use of them. And in fact, I'm not even sure what the most optimal use of them would be. So I'm excited for players to figure that out and kind of really role play being an astronaut and problem solving like that.
But you know how many solar panels there is up there, and how many fuses, how many of, carbon filters, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, there's requirements for each of the modules on what they need to operate, but there's a small element of randomization to each playthrough. So we have a roughly 20 to 25 square mile map of Mars that is explorable in the game, and that kind of differs depending on where some of the radiation boundaries are. But there are 9 possible locations on the map where habitats can spawn. And each playthrough, only 3 of those locations will spawn in a habitat. And then you've got like over 160 different discoverable locations of like supply caches or rovers or other little kind of points of interest around the map that are also randomized. And so every time you play, I can't say for sure how many fuses or carbon filters you'll find, but each playthrough, that'll be kind of something for the player to discover.
Does this mean theoretically the bases could spawn all fairly close to each other, and then a rover that you need is spawned at the other end of the map?
We've actually, the algorithm I use to spawn in the habitats creates kind of a natural journey across the map. So they'll never spawn just like 3 clumped together, but there are certainly, you won't know when you first start the game how beneficial the arrangement would be. And so you have to go out and kind of not knowing what's there for you to discover. You might get one playthrough where you get really fortunate and find a really valuable supply cache right next to one of the first habitats that you spawn at. And another playthrough, you might have virtually no food and have to go in search of the second habitat right away. So there's all kinds of ways that we can utilize that too, where, we might create like seeds, spawning seeds for survival challenges where like, maybe for 1 week, there's a specific randomization of all the different locations that everyone's playing the same version, and so we'd see how long somebody can survive. There's all kinds of ideas like we have for those kind of interactions and ways we could gamify the survival mechanics.
Yeah, I was just doing some quick math in my head. So you say it's a 25 square mile area approximately. Mm-hmm. That's a 5 by 5, and that means the longest distance will be the diagonal of about 7 miles. It's 10 kilometers away. That's a fair journey on Mars, particularly so time goes fairly quickly. It's nighttime really quickly.
Right,
that's
yeah.
A minus F load of, it's cold at night, let's put it that way.
Right. Yeah. The journey you take throughout the game to find equipment and supplies, currently without any drivable vehicles, it's a dangerous one. You really have to watch your oxygen supply, and once you've journeyed more than 50% of your oxygen supply, you can't go back, and so you have to know that the next habitat is just over the next ridge or what have you. So it takes a lot of planning, and you have to keep your equipment in check to make sure like your scanner is working, for example, so that when you're out adventuring and you're in search of the next habitat, you can confirm that it's a certain distance away. And yeah, there's all kinds of things you'll have to manage to make that journey a safe one.
Yeah, I could imagine. I never got the alerts that I was running out of battery. It was one of those, oh crap, I'm down to 20%.
Mm-hmm.
I could imagine people need that somewhere, 60, 55% oxygen left. It's turn around or, go for it.
Yeah, I think my approach with the first release has been to do as little hand-holding as possible just to see what players' reactions have been. And largely, I think that it's been mostly positive. I think there are some people who the only kinds of warnings I think that people are really looking for are the kind of warnings that, an actual spacesuit would have. And we have those in there. So you get a warning when your oxygen supply reaches 25%, when your battery reaches 25%, or you should anyway. So if you don't, I guess that could be reported in our feedback forum. But and yeah, so you'll have the critical warnings of when things are getting really bad. But yeah, before that point, you really do have the freedom to kind of make your own decisions, and the game's not going to tell you what you should or shouldn't do. It gives you the freedom to do whatever you like.
Including the freedom to die, or run out of electricity and die. Nah, it's all good. I mean, the game was that, it's challenging, and I can appreciate that this seems to be a game more for people who are interested in the Mars aspect of it, as opposed to the base building aspect or mining aspect, because that doesn't seem to be where you're focusing. There isn't, dig here to find aluminium or find copper.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of other survival games that focus on an economy of kind of building or creativity, and since our original goal has always been a story mode where we have a specific narrative that we'd like to tell, we haven't focused as much on those aspects. Like there's other Mars games you can find that will be like multiplayer and let you build your own bases and stuff like that, but we really wanted to go more for a realistic approach to the one of the first Mars missions. Like you would not be designing and crafting your own habitats in those first few missions. That's all stuff that was sent ahead, and you're just utilizing that space. And what little crafting you can do in the game, we do have crafting. It's more out of necessity, where since you are in a critical survival situation, you have to make do with what you have. So you have to maybe break down some components to retrofit new components for a failing module or what have you. So yeah, you have to. We're trying to balance that player creativity aspect, which has never been one of our main goals. It's with the goal of creating a realistic and believable astronaut experience.
I think Bam is smiling right now because that means this is for once not a Minecraft game.
That's right.
I swear to Christ. I was going to ask when you said crafting and multiplayer, I'm like, space Minecraft. No, it's not. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, no.
You have to make shit out of necessity. If you dismantle a bit of equipment to keep other equipment running, you then lose that bit of equipment you've been dismantled, but you've gained two others. Yes, this is not Space Minecraft. This is an actual survival game.
Right, and some of those components that we use for crafting, it's another one of those small choices that the player is going to have to make. Like you said, some of the components, like if there's for example, a microcontroller, so a small motherboard basically to help control the computer components in your inventory, that can be used to replace a control board on one of the life support modules, or you can use it as scrap metal for crafting something else. And so if you're low on scrap metal and you really need to build something that requires it, you might have to sacrifice that microcontroller board to utilize it for scrap metal. And so that's, having those choices, even as small as that, I think is really important in kind of replicating the experience of an astronaut, because those are the kind of tough decisions that they would have to make if they were in a survival situation like that.
Very much so, very much so. And yes, Chi, you are right. This is not a spacey Minecraft with the background of Mars. So I'm very happy, because that was actually one of my questions. Is this a Martian Minecraft? Which is not. So I'm happy with that. Happy days. Now, speaking of multiplayer, no multiplayer at all. So there isn't going to be a section of the map where you can maybe perhaps find a survivor, a bot or another player, and you help each other? Or is that just like not completely going to be in there at all? You're on your own. If you die, you die. It's your fault. Get good, noob type thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of it kind of goes back to what I mentioned earlier about creating a cinematic experience and really putting you in the shoes of a sole survivor situation. That's a multiplayer aspect is not something that we've ever really planned or wanted for that style of game, but I mean, it's not out of the question as a potential add-on mode later. It really does depend on what players want and what kind of feedback we get during early access. But so far, I think we've attracted exactly the kind of player that we set out to, is the person who wants this solitary atmospheric experience set on Mars, and not one where that could be interrupted by somebody typing profanity in chat or, destroying some aspect of a structure you've built because they can. That's just not the kind of experience that I was setting out for when I first started the project.
Fair enough. I just had to ask because a lot of people that I know have seen games as, multiplayer, blah, blah, blah. Particularly when it comes to space engineers and so on and so forth. They build their bits and pieces and so on. And it's like, dude, that's just Minecraft with a different skin. And, I'm glad you're not doing that. And you've got the correct market. So, yes, happy days.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not going to disparage those games at all. I mean, I play them myself, but I think that you're right that it's been done, and I'd like to see something a little bit different, something that kind of elevates the idea of space exploration to something dramatic and scary at times, and a story that the player has to work through and kind of figure out what they need to do. So yeah, it's they're just different ways to approach two different problems, and so I'm really happy with the way it's going so far, and the survival mechanics that we got, I think, differentiate us a lot from these other games.
So another question. You were talking earlier, and this is a question we wanted to ask, and I've just spotted it in my question list here. You were talking about foods and potatoes and corn. Particularly, G mentioned corn because you're from corn country or whatever have you, blah,
right.
blah, blah. So I happen to know there's freeze-dried bacon. Will there be any bacon in this game? Freeze-dried or deliciously fresh?
You know, I have not come across that in any of the itemized lists for the International Space Station or the Space Shuttle, for example, but that's what we've mostly based our food stores on. But, you know, I might have to add one in there just for you guys.
I tell you what, you don't have to if you don't want to, mate. It's just, I believe it or not, there was a guy that went up to the ISS, right, for a year, twin project, whatever have you, and, you know, I watched him on YouTube and the videos he made and whatever have you, and just awestruck by the fact that he was up there for an entire year, and his twin was down on planet Earth, you know, living the high life while he was stuck in a tin can doing several thousand miles per hour, right? And I was amazed to have all these different types of foods, M&Ms and all sorts of bits and pieces, all plug them into a machine, it hydrates them, hot water, cold water, whatever have you, it makes them all nice and delicious, but no bacon. How the hell did he survive in space for a year without having any bacon?
You know, that's a very good question. I think you're making me hungry right now. I might have to go make some bacon after this.
Actually, I noticed this because they've been sending up different people from different countries. Like, there's been a Danish guy up there, there's been Tim Peake from the UK, etc. You know, people from all over the place are being sent up there. The Italian woman was sent up there, and she had Italian coffee machine brought up. Apparently, they do actually send up food that is, you know, from the country. So they send up, they have little chefs making delicious specialties, but they get vetted by NASA, who says, well, you can't have this, you can't have this, you can't have this. The food has to be flavorful, but is not allowed to smell. Not allowed to have any smell, because then the whole damn thing, the tin box, will just smell of that
Right.
food for ages. So, and that's the problem with bacon. If you bring bacon, the whole damn thing will smell of bacon for the next few years.
I understand that, and I understand that when you go into the ISS, whatever have you, SSC, good God. Ugh. When you go into the ISS, sorry, SSC is a different thing completely. If you walk into the ISS, there's a rather pungent odor because, you know, you locked in a tin can. You can't exactly open the window to, you know, let the smell out. But I don't see the problem with making it smell like bacon. What's the problem? You're not giving me a problem here, dude. Seriously, not even, you know, yeah, I don't see the problem. What's the problem?
Do you know what? Do you remember well, that's before your time, but the first time they sent people into space for an extended period was on a Saturn V stage 2 container, stage 1 container. They repurposed, well, they basically made people live inside what was a used rocket. And the third crew that was sent up there just to work 24/7, they ended up making a mutiny. And I could imagine if you sent people into the International Space Station, make the whole damn thing smell of bacon, and say, yeah, there's no more bacon, you'd have another mutiny.
I understand that, but I believe one of the astronauts as well, now, I'm not sure if this is true, this could be folklore, but one of the astronauts went up with a corn sandwich, I believe it was, or a sandwich in his pocket, because I know the story, my mother told it to me once, this crazy astronaut, they actually put a sandwich in his pocket, specially made, zip-tied, bagged a lot in his zip-tied sandwich, in his pocket, and they sent him to space because he was fucking hungry. I don't see why. What's the problem? No problems are revolving.
Well, Tyler, you will have to, you know, break from tradition. You will have to make a bacon freeze-dried sandwich.
There you go.
Bam, you happy now?
Well, but bacon is vegetarian, isn't it? It grows on trees. Just cut yourself a slice, bro, you know?
I think we've established that in past episodes. Yes, bacon is apparently vegetarian.
I'll have to tell my wife that. She's vegetarian and I'm not.
Must be interesting chat around the dinner table when you're tucking into your lovely slice of the beef and she's eating cabbage and lettuce. and leaves.
Oh yes, lots of soy products and tofu.
Tree bark.
And oh yeah, basically.
Tree bark. I feel for you. We have a resident vegetarian, and he doesn't stop about this soy chicken thing. I'm like, hang on. How do people not have soy chicken and say it tastes like chicken when they have never had chicken to begin with, and yet apparently it tastes like chicken? But when I taste it, it tastes like crap. It doesn't taste a damn thing like chicken.
It's been so long since they've had meat, they don't even know what it tastes like anymore.
Oh, there we go. Anyway, we got a bit off track with a corned beef sandwich in a pocket. Dude, a little bit more about yourself.
So I told you that when I started, I was kind of in the graphic side of things, and I transitioned to programming. I basically taught myself programming. Like, when I first did the original prototype for this, I didn't really know how to program. So from the start of this project to today, I am now, like, that is my primary function on the project. So it's been a really interesting experience, and I think with a lot of other projects of this scale, I don't know if that would have worked. But yeah, we've made it work, and I've just had some really great people helping me along the way. My brother was the full-time artist on the project for a couple years, and he moved on, but his art is still in the game, and I think we're really, really proud of how the game looks, and a couple other freelance artists, friends of mine, have assisted as well. And so, yeah, the programming side has been my focus for a while now, but I've still, I'm basically the designer for the whole project too, so getting to kind of manage the art side and implement the day-night cycle and how Mars looks and stuff from a coding perspective has been a really interesting challenge too.
Okay, so between you or your brother, who designed the habitats?
That was, it was a combination of planning the design on both of our parts, but he did like 95% of the artwork on all the habitats and a lot of the other equipment you see as well.
Yeah, because I'm asking, I went inside the habitat module, at least the alpha one, I don't know if they differ between the sites, and I noticed there's a little stairs leading up to a shower.
Yeah.
Water, gravity, that doesn't work, mate.
Yeah, the design of the habitats is they're kind of a hexagonal, or I guess roughly octagonal shape tube. And so in order to fit some of these little modules inside, there had to be some creative engineering going on. And actually, a lot of the water in the habitats would probably be stored above you because it works as a radiation shield. It's much more feasible and inexpensive compared to, piling dirt up on top of the habitats or something like that. So yeah, there are you can take some liberties with the science a little bit, but there's feasible reasons why you'd have a shower elevated a little bit.
Yeah, I'm just thinking the rest of the people be annoyed.
So you just said you're going to be throwing dirt on top of a habitat. The Martian soil is somewhat radioactive itself.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways proposed to overcome the radiation issue on Mars. Because Mars doesn't have an atmosphere like Earth does, or a magnetic, what am I trying to say?
Magnetosphere?
Yeah, magnetosphere. So we don't have a way to really protect our astronauts from radiation exposure on Mars. So one of the proposed ways is packing in a bunch of water above the habitats or around the habitats. Another way would be to use simple bulldozer type equipment to pile up dirt over the habitats. And yeah, obviously everything on Mars is slightly irradiated just because it's all being exposed to radiation all the time. But yeah, it's one of those things where you have to weigh the pros and cons, or the benefits and detriments of each plan. So yeah, having radioactive dirt on top of you might not sound that great, but it's protecting you from the radiation from the sun hitting and baking your insides. So that's kind of a positive.
You do have three sources of radiation. You have the sun, you have space, literally.
Right.
Background radiation in space, and you have the dirt, and literally the dirt is the least radioactive of the three. So
right.
Yeah, and I don't think you're not using necessarily topsoil. If you're doing this right, use regolith. You
right.
go down to where you have hard dirt, so to speak, literally rock, and you chop that up and pile that over. Unfortunately, that also requires water because you basically need to make it into some kind of cement.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've been doing a lot of reading over the years and trying to see how one of these missions would actually work. And like I said, you always, from a game design perspective, you always have to take some liberties to make it a little more fun. But yeah, it's crazy how much thought has gone into this over the last several decades. I mean, we haven't really done anything new or really challenging as far as space exploration goes, really since the Apollo missions. And so it's just been a lot of conjecture and theoretical engineering. And so there's some really cool books. One of my favorites is The Case for Mars, where the author explains kind of using technology that we already have and technology that's relatively feasible. We can go to Mars now if we wanted to. It's just a matter of making it happen financially. So
I think that's also the one that makes the case for the 6 month transfers.
Mm-hmm.
This is basically a genius idea. As I said earlier, a homeland transfer takes 7 point something months, but if you do it 6 months and something goes wrong, you just don't land. 6 months later, you're back on Earth.
Right, yeah.
I agree with with what you said earlier on about the space exploration. The last sort of big proper space exploration we did was with the Apollo missions, human beings and whatever have you. But there has been quite a lot happening. Look at the Rosetta mission. Fuck, we landed granted, Philae landed in a deep dark hole and didn't really work, but we still got some valuable information from there. That to me, to be honest, is a highlight since the Apollo mission. I mean, I could say, we could land the Juno and we go find water and whatever, but landing on a comet, holy shit.
Yeah, I mean, from a personal perspective, absolutely, I agree. There's been some truly incredible engineering on a shoestring budget that's been done to get these, unmanned missions where they're supposed to go. I mean, we've got probably one of the most exciting in the next few years is the launch of the James Webb Telescope, which will give us clearer pictures of the deepest areas of space than we've ever had. So there's certainly some really cool things going on in the realm of space exploration, but I think there's a disconnect between the analytical and scientific aspects of space exploration and the exciting, popular, cultural impact of space exploration. So I really hope that, media like The Martian and games like ours hopefully will help inspire a new generation of kids who will not see somebody land on the moon in their lifetime. Hopefully they'll see someone land on Mars in their lifetime, but it's going to need public support to make that happen.
Oh, definitely. And games like this that are at least showing people the theoretics behind it and surviving on a planet like Mars, particularly Mars, goes a long way in helping people push for it. A kid that's 10 might play your game and says, "Solid, I want to be rocket scientist because this shit's fucking..." I almost stop swearing now, sorry. Because this stuff's rather entertaining. And you never know, you might be the next dude.
I think the best thing I could imagine from a feedback perspective in working on this project is if someone emailed me or wrote to me saying that they were inspired to get involved in space exploration, no matter what field it is, whether it's engineering or if they wanted to be an astronaut or even if it's just tangentially, they worked on some piece of equipment that was utilized in a space mission. That would be just the best for me. I wouldn't need any other reviews or sales. That's absolutely from the start been one of the things I've hoped for, is that I could inspire someone to want to explore or help someone else explore the universe.
You might get somebody writing you and saying they have been inspired to make sure there are fuses everywhere.
There you go, yes.
If you've got any more questions, G, please fire them at Tyler.
I'm just worried I'm gonna nerd out.
Dude, please, by all means. Tyler's the bigger nerd of the pair of us, and I'm pretty geeky. You're a fucking super freak, and I think Tyler's outclassed you, dude. Please, I want to know what he thinks about this James Webb Telescope taking clear pictures of other planets that might have habitable life. You never know, we might catch some poor dude in another planet taking a crap behind a bush. That's what I think they're doing,
I do like the James Webb Telescope. It's one of those, I don't think the population at large is aware of it and what it's going to do and how it's going to work. Or for that matter, the whole idea of where they're parking it and how they're parking it.
Right.
It might be the Kerbal player in me, but I think that the launch and the parking of it is at least as awesome as everything else around it.
Yeah, for sure. I think that people might not know about it now, but they sure as hell will when it starts sending back the first images, because it's like going from a like early 2000s flip phone to like the best, commercial camera you can buy. Like that's the comparison in picture quality. Like this is orders of magnitude more powerful than anything we've had before. I'm very excited to see what it starts sending back.
Well, I'm old enough that I can say I would expect it to have the same effect as Hubble did.
Yeah.
This whole, here's pictures of something so far away it's unimaginable. And people going, wow. Yeah, it's a blur, particularly the first ones, for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
But they were awesome. And I would think, James Webb will take pictures of objects, both objects further away, but also of the same objects as Hubble did, but in better quality. And I think that will have an effect.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because these kind of projects they have a really interesting effect on the population, especially when the types of data that they're collecting are so freely available to people. That's something that we've benefited from in this project, where the Mars HiRISE orbiter around Mars that takes the high resolution scans of the planet's surface, we're actually utilizing those to create the physical terrain in the game. So when you're walking around in the game, you're walking on real scans of actual Martian features that we've literally just loaded into our terrain mapping. So it's a really cool thing to be able to utilize that data, and I think it lends a certain credibility to the game that's kind of intangible. Like even if you didn't know that was the case, that we were using the real 3D scan data, I feel like when you're walking around in the game, it feels authentic to what it would be like, what you would imagine it would be like to walk around on Mars.
Yeah, and that's a cool little thing. I actually liked that when I read it in the pitch that you did that. That's a nice little trick.
Yeah, and it really helped us actually to manage the scale of the game world without having to hire countless environment designers and artists, and we can utilize some automation to a certain extent where the Mars already exists. We don't need to recreate it. We can literally just use the real Mars to help us form the terrain, and so it certainly saved us a lot of time and effort and added to the realism of the game.
I was actually going to ask that, actually, believe it or not. Have you actually modeled the surface of Mars to the game to the best of your ability, so we actually are walking on the surface of Mars? That would be beautiful.
Yeah, we still, obviously, the resolution that those scans are taken at are, I believe, roughly like 1 meter per pixel of the scanned images. So, in order to add a little bit of extra detail so things don't look too smooth or what have you, we take some artistic license a little bit when we create like the ground textures for the rocks and sand, and we try to get it as close as possible to replicating some of the images that have been taken directly from the on-the-ground rovers. So yeah, we still have to fill the gaps a little bit, but as far as I'm aware, it's like one of the closest you'll get in a digital environment and getting to explore the true Martian landscape.
I fully understand when it comes to creative license, and I think you are correct. 1 pixel is 1 square meter, I believe, as well. So you've got to take some creative license when it comes to bits like that. So yes, happy days. Tyler, dude, have you got anything else you want to talk about that we might have missed?
Other than just sending people to our Steam page and checking us out. Even if you don't think that the amount of content that we have right now is enough for you, just add us to your wish list and check us out as we continue adding updates. So,
right. So, Tyler, dude, please tell me, the ignorant one, where I can go and find your game and anything else you want from me to tell everybody else, all that stuff.
Yeah, so you can find us just about anywhere you want to look. Facebook, Twitter, our website, randomseedgames.com. But the most important would be to check us out on Steam. Just search Lacuna Passage, and you'll find us on Steam Early Access. And even if you don't like what you see right now, just know that we'll be adding updates. So add us to your wish list at the very least and check out what we have coming down the line. So yeah, get involved. We have an awesome feedback form where you can leave your suggestions. And that's a link from our Steam page and our website. And yeah, get involved in the development. Let us know what you think, and hopefully we'll get to work together and making a really cool Mars survival game.
Right, I've just added you to my wish list, so happy days.
Oh, thanks.
Well, that means you have to release on PlayStation 4.
Yeah.
I do have a Steam account. I do plan on getting over this broken ass clock wound up laptop, and I have got some games that I am going to be playing, and yes. Right, G, it is time for the last question. Tyler, I hope you're ready, because G stupidly signed a bloody contract. And Section 3, Article A, Annex B, he's required to ask this question, and I'll let him ask it.
So, Tyler, we've touched on this already in this little interview of ours, and as Bam says, I'm contractually required to ask it of every single guest, which means if you heard any of the previous interviews, you'll know what it is. Now, I'm gonna say the answer. If it involves maize or corn, I'm gonna be confused, but let's try. What is your favorite bacon? How do you want that bacon? And what kind of beverage do you want with it? And knowing you're American, I'll refrain from asking what kind of beer you want.
Okay, so I'm actually very well versed in bacon. I make a maple glazed oven baked bacon, and that would have to be my all-time favorite. I chop that up and put it in a breakfast burrito. So you've got this awesome maple syrup glazed bacon and egg and cheese and bell peppers, and yeah, it's awesome. And what beverage I would have with that, since it's a breakfast food, one of my favorite breakfast beverages is apple juice.
You know, G, if I told him cider, he'd probably have gone for cider. Yeah.
You know what? I love a good cider.
There we go. Boom. Breakfast burrito, honey glazed maple. Oh, delicious. I'm actually watering. My mouth is watering right here.
It's so good.
Mmm.
When you say cider, do you mean the American thing that's just squeezed apples? Or do you mean like English with 5% alcohol?
You know what? Actually, I love both. In the U.S., alcoholic ciders have really taken off, and I regrettably am not a fan of beer, and so cider is kind of my next. Alcoholic cider is kind of my next best thing. So I really enjoy a good. We have an awesome one here in Iowa that's Ace Pear Cider, which is like a pear flavored apple cider. It's so good.
See, I'm into pear ciders as opposed to apple ciders.
Okay.
But I think, Bam, you need to find some money in the travel budget. I'm heading to Iowa because I want to taste that burrito.
Yeah, dude, it's so good.
Yeah. You two are a pair of nutters. How can you make cider from pears? Come on, cider is apples. Come on, guys. Jeez. Yeah.
Nah, but I think I should bring a nice Lindeman's apple lambic. That would do well. I think you should try that.
All right.
That's beer, I should point out, but it's beer made without yeast and then apple flavored. It's good.
Ah, nice.
Okay,
well, as Bam says, yeah, mouth-watering, and I need to try that. Breakfast burrito is not a thing over here, but we'll make it a thing. Beyond that, I don't actually have anything else. We've gone through all the nerdy stuff. I mean, we could go on for a while. The whole just radiation on Mars could take ages.
I'm sure.
But we have to cut it somewhere. Let's cut it here. Tyler, it's been awesome. I tried the game, I enjoyed it. I'm going to play it more because, full disclosure, that was a free key. Thank you. Well, I should say thank you, Craig, because he sent it to me. I hope to have you on again, eventually again, when there's more to the story, because I'm into the stories of games, as opposed to survival is usually not me. This might actually be it, because it's not, as Bam said, it's not Minecraft on Mars. So I'll be playing it some more, and I'll probably be complaining about something, besides what I complained about earlier. And, let's see where this game goes. Best of luck, mate.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me on.
Tyler, no problem, dude. It was a pleasure to have you on and actually talk to you. Thank you very much for making a game that's not Minecraft on Mars, and much respect for that, mate. I think that's that breakfast burrito is I might have to go to Iowa. Yeah.